Hi everybody, and welcome to the reading demonstration part 2 for Thursday, April 23rd, 2020. So we listened to our read aloud, we stopped and we jotted down some ideas that we had and wondered about when we were reading. So now what we're going to do is we're going to look through each of our bullet points and see which one could I really write long and hard on. I think I'm going to choose this one right here. Buffalo were killed so that the railroad could be built. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to the second page, I'm going to write the word idea, and I'm going to paste it there. So now I'm going to use two charts. I'm going to look at a way to determine my own perspective on the topic, and I'm going to use ways to push my thinking. So I want to start with looking at determining my perspective. So what do I think about my topic? So if I go back and look at the topic of Buffalo were killed so that the railroad could be built, I would say that this was an awful way to get rid of an animal that may have been in the way of a railroad track. I also want to say this reminds me of, and I can use this as one of my, this connects to, this is giving me the idea that, or this reminds me of the deforestation of the rainforest. And I can continue on with saying people are cutting down the rainforests so that houses can be built and farmers have more land to grow crops. To continue writing long and hard about my idea, I can go over here again and I can say this shows, so I can say in both examples it shows how humans do not think that animals are important, but they actually are. The Native Americans used the animals for food and clothing, and they didn't waste any part. Even in today's time, we use animals for food and sometimes clothing. For example, leather jackets and belts. While providing food and clothing is important, animals provide other things to the world as well. For instance, some animals eat other animals so that the population doesn't get out of control. A good example of this is a bat that eats at least 3,000 mosquitoes a night. We don't like those bugs, and the bats help us not get eaten up. Honeybees, although not an animal, are also important to grow crops since they pollinate the trees and help fruits and vegetables grow. So I used some push my thinking stems, and I did look at, to determine my perspective. And now I want to think of, if I go back to that chart, I want to think of what feelings do I want to instill in others, and what is it that I want to say to the world? So what do you want people to know? So I want people to know that killing animals just because they are in the way has to stop. It wasn't good for the buffalo during the time period of westward expansion, and it isn't good for animals now. So this is what I mean by writing long and hard. See how I took one idea and I grew it and nurtured it so that other people can now know that just because you want to build something, if an animal is living there, we shouldn't move them out of the way because it's unfair and it actually can impact an ecosystem. Just like if we got rid of bats, all those mosquitoes wouldn't be eaten up at night and we'd have a heck of a lot more mosquitoes to fend off during those hot summer nights. And what happens with the honeybees? If we force them out of their hives, or we force them out of the trees, and we force them out of the woods, they won't pollinate any of our fruit trees. So that means no more apple picking in the fall. That could be a horrible experience to go through. So now let's review the reading lesson for Thursday, April 23rd. You're going to look at the first